right. How's everybody doing today on this Saturday? Hope everybody's doing okay. Thank you for being here. My name is 12 Gauge. I am your host. And this is my channel, 12 Gauge Investigative. Today has been a pretty good day, actually. It's uh, been kind of busy. So this is the first chance I've had to really get online and discuss some things. Tonight I want to talk about the IDAHO4 case, and I'm going to take it back to the past a little bit. I'm also going to give my present impression of what the old 12 was talking about, because the old 12 was onto a lot of things that really haven't been discussed either by myself or others that I've heard of throughout listening to many content creators. So, I want to take you back to a video that I did. It's kind of blurry though. I don't know what was going on with my camera at that time. This one's kind of clear, right? Last night I was looking at the replay of the camera, and it looked kind of blurry as well. Anybody in the chat, can y'all give me a number one if it's pretty clear, if the voice, the microphone, everything going pretty well? Y'all can hear me, see me. Like it says, rise and grind. Anyways, let me get to the video. Because this guy that's going to talk to you for a second has a lot of good insight. I like this guy. He's not a bad dude. Let me put him up like that. That way we can share the screen and it's not just as blurry to you guys. And let me go ahead and thank you so much, Bullets and Bling. Hope that you're having a good day, Aquarius. Hello, thank you for being here. Rondi, Nina, thank you for being here. Well, let's listen to this, what the past 12 gauge has to say. All right. And the title is Let's Talk About Different Areas of the Case. And this was an early video. Like, I'm talking about, I wasn't even going live yet. I didn't even have the documentation stuff on the screen, as you can tell by the StreamYard. So let's hear what he has to say. Good morning, everybody. This is 12 Gauge. I'd like to start off with the disclaimer. Everything that is stated here is strictly my opinion. And I'm going to present a lot of facts and a lot of theories, but that's just all they are, just theories, because in reality, nobody really knows at this point other than the information that we have from the PCA. I'm going to be talking about a lot of different cases and intertwine them together as a theory that I've been thinking about. So let's talk about it. First of all, I was on a panel last night and they were discussing a situation that another creator had discussed, as far as, like when you finish surfing, you get out, you jump into a rubber tub and you strip down. That got me to thinking that if the individual that did this came out of the house, stripped down, had a wetsuit on, and then threw everything in the trunk and took off, as they say. Okay, let me stop. Or what is stated. Let me stop him right here. I don't know if y'all have ever heard that theory about, the individual who supposedly did the killing had a tub, like a plastic Rubbermaid tub, that he would have jumped in, stripped off his clothes, stripped everything off, put everything in the tub, put the tub in the trunk, and then drove off. Let me know in the chat if you've ever heard that theory, because I have talked about that with Jeff H before on this panel, and we've even gotten into some comical commentary at one point where we discussed a shower curtain because for some reason that became an issue in some people's mindset that when they searched his house or his apartment, they didn't find a shower curtain in his bathroom. So Jeff and I, in another video, we were discussing the shower curtain, and we were going round and round about that, because you know that shower curtain could have been evidentiary, So that's what I'm talking about up here. I'm talking about the rubber tub. And Bulletin Bling says, I did hear that and things about a wetsuit. Rondi says, I never heard about a tub. Aquarius says, you and Jeff talked about that. So, yes, I've heard it. Yeah, we talked about it at one point. So, let me let 12 Gauge continue his speech here. In the PCA. This is an interesting theory because not only would he have everything covered up, the mesh on the bodysuit or the wetsuit would allow any DNA or skin cell to be dropped in the car. But I don't want to get into that aspect of it as much because I'm not a DNA specialist or anything of that nature. So I'm just strictly just brainstorming here. I've been watching two relative cases that were in the past. One of them was the Gainesville Ripper, and the other one that I watched yesterday was a little bit about Ted Bundy. Well, the similarities in this case that I noticed were obviously the knife attacks. They were done, on opportunities to be able to take out the victims. But one thing that I noticed on the Gainesville Ripper is he would put gray tape over their mouths. And then he would essay them and then roll them over and stab them and then position them in provocative ways. None of that was stated in this case as far as essay. Um, but the thing about nothing was heard, there was no screams that were heard or anything of that nature. All that was heard was, well, let me ask you guys a question here, because this guy's bringing up some good questions here, because I've heard since this live or since this upload different things. The PCA came out. We saw what was going on in the PCA, what was heard, what was seen. Do y'all believe that, and we've talked about this as well, as far as there potentially could have not been any screams? Do you believe that there was any kind of noise other than what was stated in the PCA that could have been heard by one of the surviving roommates? Do you believe that possibly at any point in the game that there was, did he drop the knife at any point? Was there any thuds on the floor? Was there any, going up and down the stairs? Did it sound like a large walker? Like, did he run down those stairs? Did he, hit every step? Did he miss a step at any point? Anything like that. Because if you're a surviving roommate, you would have heard certain things, I would believe. But I could be wrong. I'm saying this just so you guys can interact with me in the chat and give me your thoughts on this. Do you believe that there was any other noises heard other than what they specified? Ronnie says, I believe there was some noise in some way. How about the rest of you? Do you believe that there was any noise that was possibly heard that maybe The surviving roommate didn't know what that noise was. They didn't understand it. It may have sounded like people, just running upstairs or, walking down the stairs. I mean, anything like that. Well, it says, I'm sure other noises were heard, but there were so many people coming in and out of the house and partying that they could have thought Ethan and Xana were messing around. Very true. Very true. And that's why I'm asking because, there's been a big thing about, well, there's no way that there could have not been other noises heard in the house. There had to be other noises heard in that house. It couldn't have been a quiet crime scene. But I believe half of the other, half of one and half of the other. I mean, because I've never been in an active crime scene like this. I've never been in a house where something like this has happened. So if I heard rummaging around, let's say I was in a house just like that, I don't believe that I would think that something as horrendous as this was going on. How about you in the chat? Do you believe that if you were Dylan and you were in her room, you would have thought, oh, there's something awful happening upstairs at this moment, other than Kaylee potentially playing with her dog?
Crying, and I think she said in the PCA, dog barking and whimpering, maybe. Um, but can you imagine if there was gray tape that was placed over a person's mouth as the crime was unfolding, and then after it happened, take the gray tape off, stick it in your Dickies suit or whatever you're wearing, and then take off on to the next. And I'm not trying to be so nonchalant about the way I speak. I'm used to being very blunt and very to the point.
We get you.
So please don't take my method of speaking as being callous or uncaring. I'm just not having my emotional attachment to it right now, even though I do recognize that this is a very heinous and very disturbing case to say the least. Now on to Ted Bundy. While I was watching his documentary on YouTube, um, one thing stuck out to me. When he was at, they called it a beach, but it was kind of like a lakefront where he picked up one of his victims, and they made a statement about he got into his Volkswagen Beetle and drove off, and someone took a picture of his Volkswagen Beetle, but the license plate was too blurred to really identify it. Well, they followed that up with saying it was the 70s, so there was hundreds of Volkswagen Beetles in that area where he was at. So it got me to thinking, okay, well, that's a similarity to the IDAHO4 in a sense that think about the 2200 Hyundai Elantras that are in that area all alone as they were speaking on this crime early on. Does it mean anything? No. But the similarities are very, very interesting to say the least. What are the odds of these similarities being same car, multiple variables of there being the same car in that area in both cases? I mean, I understand that, you could go to any city and you're going to see more than one variation of a vehicle. Kind of like here where I live, white Ford trucks are everywhere. So if a crime was committed and the perp was in a white Ford truck, it would be difficult to find them unless you really had other insinuating evidence to show that just with the person. When the Ted Bundy case, they identified that his Volkswagen Beetle was a gold color or kind of like a off yellow, goldish color. So once they did the sketches, it was easy to identify that who could potentially be this individual.
Well, I know that there's been a lot of people that have talked about that wasn't the Elantra, that wasn't the vehicle. It couldn't have been the vehicle. There was there was a lot of different other possibilities of it being a different car, of the vehicle being, distorted in some way or the other, whether it be being wrapped or being painted, or even the 1330 Linda Lane camera distorting the color of the car. Because what I'm saying right here is if you're seeing that vehicle around the Queen Road Apartments as many times as it stated in the PCA that it did, how could you mistake a vehicle years? How could you mistake a vehicle, especially if it was the only one that was rolling around without a license plate in the front? Um, I believe that, I have a lot of theories in my library on my channel regarding, the window tint, regarding, possibly the tire impressions, you know. But let's say for the sake of argument that the vehicle wasn't even used. Okay? Let's let's go down that rabbit hole. Let's say the vehicle wasn't used or wasn't parked. Maybe the individual did drive around the house at least once, twice maybe, and then he went and parked it somewhere and ran to the crime scene. That would have been a hell of a lot of material to bring with you to commit this crime. As Tom Van was talking on panel the other night, you know, you just don't um, go into a house like that without being prepared. So if you're running up to the house, yeah, that's true. Um, so if you're running up to the house, did you use one of those passages to stop and leave a backpack with the knife and the sheath and the dicky suit? Did you possibly get dressed after you entered the crime scene or even back there by some trees? Left the backpack there, went into the house, did what you did, stripped down, stuffed everything in the backpack, and then put it on your back and ran off. Because many then people would have possibly thought, well, you're just a student running late at night or early morning. Maybe you're heading to work. Um, there's a lot of different variables. There are a lot of different ways that this could have happened. Another scenario they talked about was possibly the individual, instead of going out the back door, he didn't go out the back door. He went to the back slider, turned around, walked back down the stairs to the first floor, opened the front door, left the front door open, and out the front door he went. But also, if you're going to go with that scenario, that is a very dangerous one, especially with all the cameras supposedly in that area. all the people that were around that area during that time. Because as we've heard, you know, either it was a slow night or there was a lot of people out and about. So if there was a lot of people out and about, as we've seen in other videos, somebody could have potentially saw him walking with a backpack if that's how it happened. Because, I'm not above thinking about different variables because the car does seem the most obvious. But if we're going to go another avenue and we are going to entertain another possibility, that would make a lot of sense. If you walked away from the house, why would you want to run? I mean, honestly, if you thought that nobody called the police or there was nobody else that saw you and you took care of the four people in the house, why would you be running? Like, something's going on. You don't want to really bring attention to yourself. You want to just get out, be gone, and people are none the wiser. But the reason why I believe that there was a vehicle partially is because it stated that a car was spotted leaving the area at a high rate of speed. So, if there was a vehicle leaving the area at a high rate of speed, would that vehicle have seen the perpetrator? Could that vehicle have seen the perpetrator? Or do you believe that that was just coincidence? I'm going to pull up this map of the area. Are y'all with me here? Am I making um Hey Ray, how you doing? Yeah, I like that you said in your opinion, I like that. I like that a lot because in reality we don't know and I'm speculating as well, and I'm glad that you said that in your opinion because your opinion is valid here just like everybody else's, you know. As you can see from this map right here, what I'm talking about, let me see if you can see my pointer. This is the King Road house. He wouldn't have had to park along this street at all. He could have parked on Walenta somewhere. He could have parked on Taylor somewhere. He could have parked anywhere. This is Gray Hughes's diagram, so I took a screenshot. But let's say he runs out the front. Okay. If you're going to run out the front, the only feasible option to keep going is straight ahead. There's those brick steps that are right here that go alongside this apartment, and you just keep on walking. There's no cameras there that we know of. The only camera that you know of is the one here at 11. What is this? 11:12. I always get it confused. It's either 11:12 or 11:18. One of those. Okay, so if you know, I'm just wondering if at one point whether this individual or whoever did this crime ran out the front door, they ran straight ahead and possibly on down the road somewhere to get picked up. And no way am I saying that that vehicle that picked up that gentleman by the dumpster was anything affiliated with this crime. I don't believe so. But let's say that they didn't run out the front. They would have ran out the back of the house. As you all know, there's different houses and there's trees and all kinds of stuff. And let me see if I can pull up Walenta on the map here. Walenta Drive, Moscow, Idaho. One thing about Walenta that's very interesting, and I noticed this on a very early video in JLR's while he went to Moscow, is I'm going to start right here at the intersection. This is the intersection of Walenta. Let me take that map down so y'all can see it. Sorry if my voice is kind of scratchy. Having like throat problems for some reason today. Are y'all still with me here? All right. Sergeant Friday, Heather, welcome. Thank y'all for being here. Friday, I haven't seen you in a while. Were you happy with the election results? All right. As y'all can see this intersection right here goes all the way around to Taylor, okay? And this is the house with the camera that I've shown on another video. This is one of the houses with a lot of cameras. As y'all can see, there's a Ring camera right there. There's a camera above the door. So it's this dude is pretty camered up. And obviously they have a security system. This veers around to Taylor. I'm going to show you that way y'all aren't confused. Because there's supposedly new people that don't know about the case. I don't know how they could not know, but it is what it is. And there's King Road right there. Okay? There's the Ring Camera House right here. There's Queen Road right here. And this is Taylor Avenue. So what I was talking about, the first scenario, and this is just a scenario, this is nothing scientific whatsoever. Right here, if the individual walked out of the front door, he would have walked straight through here, and then he would have been able to exit any way he wanted. Either right or left across the parking lot. Hell, he could have parked his car here at this apartment complex. Could have parked it anywhere. Got in his car, stuffed the whatever it was in the car, and drove off. Nobody would have been the wiser. But that's the front door theory, okay? The back door or the slider theory that I have. And this is just being made up on the fly. So it's not like I thought of this, a million times over. And you can think that, it's full of crap, but it's cool. I'm just doing it for fun. Here's Queen Road right here. Obviously, we all know there's the house is back over here. And if you look at this from a top visual, you're able to see that there's some steps. You can't see it here now because you can't get near the road anymore. But there's a long line of concrete steps that go up this hill and they come out on Walenta. So one time when I was watching JLR at the very beginning, um, so you'd be able to just go up those steps and hit Walenta and be gone. If you were in shape, or if you just took off, walked down the street, hit one of these trails or whatever. I mean, there's plenty of trees around. It's not like it wouldn't be feasible that you couldn't walk along this street and not be seen. The thing about it is if you were walking, what camera could possibly catch you? Like I said, this house has a lot of cameras. And this house is kind of situated almost where 1122 is off in the background down here. I think it's down here, and those steps come up right here. So there's some stairs that go all the way down, and then they go past the 1122 where the 1122 house was, across the street, all the way through the apartment building, all the way to the university. So if you're walking down the street, I'm pretty certain this house would have caught you. If you're driving down the street, either way, this camera would have caught you one way or the other. You know, this is going to the house, this is going away from the house. So obviously, you're going down Walenta. This is the end. And what I was telling you at the very beginning, JLR was talking about he actually took his car and started walking to the end of the street. I think Walenta it is. And there's a dead end. Or maybe that's not the right street. But one of these streets has a dead end. And he was talking about possibly the individual who did this parked their car at the dead end and walked over there. I mean, one thing for certain, these neighborhoods, it's not like they're so isolated they wouldn't be able to see anything. You know what I mean? And I think early on, I had a conversation with a gentleman that's in the chat right now and another gentleman, and we were talking about the FBI agent supposedly talked about their car going the wrong direction at the wrong time, you know? Um, and it was just interesting that we spent so much time on that conversation. I think we spent like 35, 40 minutes, you know. Yeah, wrong road at the wrong time, going the wrong way. So that car supposedly was going up this way on Ridge Road at the wrong time, the wrong way. And we were talking about it going past this house. And we started talking about this residence right here. What if the individual made a U turn in this driveway? That would have caused the individual to be going, or any of these driveways, making a U turn in their driveway and then heading back the other direction. And that's quite interesting to me because most definitely he would have been going the wrong way, the wrong time, and the wrong road. Let me see what some people are saying in the chat. So we had a long conversation at that point. Um, well, thank you so much for helping me out there, both of you, because I'm just talking right now, and I decided to bring up that map for whatever reason. Let me get back to the video here. And for the record, I'm not trying to confuse anybody. I'm just trying to go over different scenarios that people placed since the PCA was brought out. And there's been a lot of individuals that don't believe there was even a car. So I mean, if there wasn't a car, let's try to analytically suggest how that individual would have been able to get into the house without a vehicle and then exit the neighborhood without being seen. That's what I was doing just then. So if you arrived late, that's what I was going over. Nothing else.
Well, that's interesting because I don't know, due to the technological aspect of being 2022, the reasoning for not releasing a sketch of the perp or potential perp, because nobody really knew what they were looking for as far as an individual until the PCA came out.
Mm-mm.
Before then, all the police had asked was for assistance in looking for a 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra, and all they really had was the Exxon footage. Um, but still no sketch of the potential perp, which I understand if you're reading the PCA, all you would have was an individual 5'10" or taller, dressed in black with bushy eyebrows. I mean, I could understand why there wasn't a sketch because there was no eyeballs described, no nose features, no mouth features, no facial features, whether he was, because you couldn't see anything other than this, you know. So how are you gonna do a sketch on just that? You really can, but I mean, it's not really gonna tell anything. So I thought it was very interesting on these two cases because in the Gainesville Ripper case,
Okay, when I was just talking about you know, the mask being over, that's just assumption that there was a hat or a hoodie or something over the hair. Nothing was stated in the PCA that stated that fact. So to say that there was something over his head where you couldn't identify the color of his hair, that's never been stated. That's never been stated anywhere. People have thought and even interjected their own theory on that he was wearing a mask and he had something covering his hair, his head, and all around, and all you could see is this. That covered his nose, and that's it. Nowhere has it been said that, though. Yes, you're right. A mask that covered his nose and his mouth, a nose and mouth. Nothing said that it covered his head. There's nothing in the PCA that said that. So, I mean, I don't know how, if she saw that individual walk by, she would have been able to see a variance of hair color, whether it be dark, whether it be light, whether it be, slick back, whether it be faded in, did it have a fade? And if you don't know what a fade is, that would be that little area right there, how it's faded in. Was it that? Or was it long on the sides? Yeah, the color of the skin, any of that. So there was none of that released. So when I was always thinking about this is was that individual wearing something to cover his head? You know, I know many people have theorized that there was what are those masks called that you just have to cut out of the face or the eyeballs and they go, you slip them over and they cover everything but your little eyeballs. You know, I don't know what those masks are called right away, but if y'all know what they are, just please. Not really a ski mask, but well, yeah, the old ski mask did have that as well, but they're like a thinner covering. Like during the pandemic, you slip them over, and all they'd show is your eyes. So I don't know, but anyways, there's never been anything discussing the color of his skin, the hair color, what kind of hair the individual had, the color of the eyebrows. What color eyebrow did the individual possess? Were they also dark? I know they said bushy, but did they say dark bushy eyebrows? I don't believe they did. So all these things, when you're given a description of somebody, you know, you're talking about the individual having dark eyebrows or bushy eyebrows. Did the individual give any more descriptive information? Was there any scars that they could see? Around the eyebrow, did the nose look? I mean, if you got that much info, what color was the eyes? Were they dark? Did they have a different kind of, help me out here, chat. If you're in a room and somebody walks by you and it's not really lit up, but it's not totally dark, could you tell if they had blue eyes? Yeah, balaclava. There you go. Could you tell if they had blue eyes, if they had brown eyes, if they had a different color eye? Could you tell if they walked by you? I don't know either. I mean, to see as much as she saw, supposedly, that's a lot. That's a lot, you know. But we still don't know if there was anything else that was saw. Many people have speculated that why wasn't there any blood on him? Why didn't she see the knife? Why wasn't he dripping full of blood? I mean, if he just committed these murders and walking by, excuse me, why wasn't there any blood on him? Who's to say there wasn't? It's never been released one way or the other. It's just people's assumption to say that there wasn't any blood on him and it wasn't a bloody crime scene. That's what people assimilate of this crime scene. The individual walked by, he wasn't dripping with blood, he didn't have blood on him at all. There was no knife in his hands. He just walked by, nodded his head, said, "Hey, good to see you." Walked on by out the back slider, got in his car, drove off. You know? I just, very good point. Was Xana's light on? Was Xana's light on? Was the bathroom light on in that hallway? Was there a light on in the hallway in the bathroom? No hand in a dark room. Your pupils would be big and harder to see color. Thank you. I know that's what the coroner said, but I'm just going what the other side has said. You know? You know my stance on this, Heather. I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate tonight, I guess. The other side have stated that it wasn't a bloody crime scene and it was cleaned up in the 8 hours. And of everything they left a latent shoe print, which I've also discussed this with an individual, and we discerned that it could have been possibly a footprint that was stepped in dog urine or some kind of bodily fluid that was left over time. And that's how they didn't catch it the first time because it was very, very faint. And it wasn't due to being bloody, it was due to being some kind of other substance on that footprint. I'm just talking. So I'm not trying to convince you one way or the other. I'm really not. Because I have my own thoughts on this and I have my own theories on this. I'm just enjoying the conversation because I'm spewing stuff that I've heard throughout the 2 years almost now. You know, today's November 9th. In 4 days or 3 days and some change will be 2 years. And still we're talking about as if somebody rolled into that house, annihilated the four, and rolled out. with no evidence whatsoever left behind on the person, in the yard, on any of the doorknobs or anything. You know? Yeah, maybe they were invisible. Good call. They teleported from their house to 1122 and then teleported back. Also, if he was wearing a Dickies jumpsuit, they're pretty porous and would soak up blood and would be hard to see in the dark. I suspect the killer was therefore during and after. What do you mean after? Like he stayed after they called 911? He was part of the crowd? That's interesting theory. I remember very early on that there was a lot of people that assumed that the killer had been in the house the night before, that had surveyed the house, you know? I mean, dog poo off of those shoes. Oh, okay, gotcha. Gotcha. But there were individuals that were theorizing that the killer was there before everybody got home and were just waiting for everything to calm down and then came out and attacked the four. What do y'all think about that possibility? Can you give me some insight on where that possibility could go wrong, where that possibility could go right, and if that possibility even holds water? That makes sense 100%. How so? Let me play a little more of the video while y'all get a chance to type in the chat.
He had opportunities and kind of stalked his victims and then used that opportunity, went in, did what he did, and then came out, positioned them. That was his calling card. And I was wondering, early on they said that Kaylee was found on top of Maddie, and I was wondering if this was a form of positioning or if they had any kind of abnormal positioning where she was found or if she just dropped and landed on Maddie. You know, and of course the other two, Ethan and Xana, they really didn't say.
Of course, this was very early on before the PCA, so therefore I was speculating based on what was going out there right then. The stalking, the Maddie, Kaylee being on Maddie, which later on we had heard something different. We'd also heard that supposedly there was no stalking. So this was way before all that. So savior typing, I understand there's things that are different. This is an older video.
How they were found or where the positions were found or how they were positioned or anything of that sort that I can recall. If they did, it wasn't so extravagant that you would think, oh, this is the perpetrator's calling card. Um, and one thing in the Gainesville Ripper case, after he finished what he did, once he killed the individuals and essayed them, he would clean up. He would even clean up the bodies, before he positioned them. So I wonder if at any point this perpetrator did the same to the bodies. Because, in the PCA it states, when they walked into the first bedroom, they didn't use adjectives such as bloody or gaping, gashing, anything about the victims, and even when they walked upstairs And I don't know if they would use that language in the PCA or if it's just too much. But you would think that when they were doing their investigation, they would, they would use that kind of lingo to describe the crime scene, other than what the coroner described as being a horrific crime scene, bloody, horrific. The only person that I can recall.
Okay. Sergeant Friday says the video at the house was a 2011-2013 Elantra, according to the cop who testified. Yes, I do remember that. I have a question to ask on that so that y'all can kind of give some analytical thought on this. Is there any feasible explanation for the year of the car to be misinterpreted by the individual who saw the footage or whatever, however they got the car? Is there any feasible reason that they would have had that car year wrong based on human error other than trying to set somebody up and all that other nefarious stuff? Is there any way that that car could have been misidentified by an individual? Is there any way? Because I'm not a car person, so I don't know. I don't know if there's any way that you can misconstrue the years because they all look the same after like 2011. They look the same. So we heard there was no stalking, but there was never said no surveillance, which are two definitions by law. Yeah, I don't know what that is. No connection. SURV is a connection. Surveillance. Yeah. He replied yes to Ann's question that the identified car by the FBI was from the around the house. No way he got it wrong. Well, I'm not saying he got it wrong. I'm just saying that how did they go from 11 to 13 to 11 to 16? How could somebody um have misconstrued the car being so different year wise? Is there any way to misconstrue that vehicle to be a later date or an earlier date car? I mean, was there possibly two vehicles? I mean, I'm just asking, just for conversational value. Please placate me and give me that benefit, in order to have a back and forth conversation where you don't have to be right, I don't have to be right, you don't have to be wrong, I don't have to be wrong. Is there any human error that could have been involved with identifying the wrong year of the car? Okay, it says because they showed the FBI different camera images, they confirmed that the car was a 14 to 16. Surveillance is not a connection. The girls nor Ethan had to know he was watching them. They identified two different cars in two different places. Okay, so we'll go with that. We'll go with that. I like y'all's response there. And that's how I view conversations going on about this case is that you don't have to prove that you're right and I'm wrong and you're right. You know what I mean? You don't have to do that. And I don't have to prove that I'm right and you're wrong. I mean, we can all just have a conversation because I'm curious whenever you're trying to decipher an inconsistency in an investigation, how could they have possibly gotten that wrong? Was it human error? Was it the potential of not identifying the vehicle at the right time? I mean, like you said, the back bumper. Could there have been, different variation in that? Because as we've seen in Linda Lane, that camera is not very good. It's grainy, it's, grayish and all that stuff. So I don't know if that would have gave the best impression to be able to give a clear image of the vehicle. Has anyone did side by side? We have done that. We have done that. Yes, the car could have been misidentified from having crappy videos and old cameras until they got near surveillance video. True. One on Queen Road and another going the wrong way at the wrong time. I'm only sharing what I remember. Yeah, I appreciate it, Sarge. I really do. I'm just saying that, when we're having a conversation, when you're trying to get to a point of reference, instead of, one way being right and one way being wrong, it's always in a conversation. It's best to have multiple variations where we can all kind of get to a common ground. And I was wondering that question. That's why I'm asking you guys. Could it been more human error, the misidentification of that car year or the footage or any of that, that led them to say, okay, we thought it was an 11 to 13. Upon further investigation, we're going to increase the years to 11 to 16. Also, think once they figured out the correct year, they didn't want to spook him by pinpointing the exact year. But don't you know, FF cracked the case with Twilio. I don't know who Twilio is because there is only one way to indent a specific year. I doubt it was wrong. Okay. Well, that's interesting in my eyes, because there's a lot of things that we were told at one point that they later came back and said, no, this wasn't correct. And one of the things was the year of the car. The other thing was the positioning of the body. Well, we were told she was on Maddie. We were told that they were all asleep. And when it came back later on, no, they weren't asleep. They were fighting for their lives. They were doing this, they were doing that. So, I mean, I believe, and this is my own belief, that if they would have been more transparent, then we wouldn't have all the speculation that we have. Why did they measure the tire mark that were already there in August 22, as shown by Xana's video? I don't know. Good question. The differences are very subtle. You need a trained eye to look for it. Okay. They look so much the same, and that is the thing that I'm talking about. Is like when you look at a vehicle, or I'm going to say I because I can't talk for you guys. When I look at a vehicle, unless I really know what that vehicle is or I've owned one, I have no clue about the differences in years, the body style, any of that stuff. And that probably shows my ignorance, but I'm not too proud to say it. I don't have that type of insight on vehicles.
That gave any kind of insight as to what kind of view you would see from the downstairs bedroom or the second floor bedroom was when Mr. Gonsalves stated there was a hell of a battle that went on down there. So that would reflect that there was a lot of damage either on the furniture, there was damage on the bed, there was damage on the door. Maybe the door was unable to be opened because it had been damaged to the point that when it was shut, it wasn't correctly aligned so you could walk in and walk out. Maybe that's why, information that has been leaked
Good
has
point.
stated, well, the doorway was unable to be opened. That's why other people were called to come assist in opening this doorway. Like I said earlier, I've been following this case for about a year. I've been reading, all kinds of things, all kinds of articles, Reddit posts, 4chan posts, any information that could put some kind of semblance of reality to this case. And at this point, I've just kind of backed off from all that because I don't want to be one of those people that gives information that somebody else has already dug up. or somebody else has speculated on, or any of that nature. I mean, because we all know what the PCA states, and pretty much that's all the information that.
Well, according to some creators, the PCA is shit paper, so that's their view on it. I've always had some good, I guess, thoughts of the PCA. There was a lot of typos, obviously. There was a lot of misinformation on some of the stuff based on differences in what people would later say. Like one example was, they said his car was seen in Johnson County or Johnson Road or something like that, Idaho, and it was actually Washington. So, I mean, there's some things in that PCA that could have been cleaned up before they presented it to the world. But, obviously, hindsight 2020. The cell phone number being totally different in one part compared to the other. There's different variations of the year of the car. There's different variations on certain things, and I believe that a lot of that, when I first read the PCA, a lot of that has to do with the misinformation that people felt they were getting from the police, and that was the mistrust that started this whole thing. That when you finally found out, well, this is what they got in order to arrest this guy and indict him for murder, well, as we heard the other day in the trial, not the trial, but the hearings, there's certain aggravators that have to be checked off, so to speak, for the lack of a better word, in order to give somebody a first degree murder and a death penalty. There's certain aggravators that must be presented to identify that this person created this type of crime. So those aggravators were being fought against to be taken off so they could potentially have the death penalty removed. So that's how all that feeds together. And whenever you look into the whole thing, as long as a lot of people have been looking into this case, you know, once you make up your mind and you say, well, when I first heard about the case or when I first read the PCA, I may have been pro somebody did this, but then once they found out it was Brian and the inconsistencies in the PCA, then I wasn't so certain because there were so many mistakes. And the fact that the police wasn't correcting any of those mistakes other than on their webpage. They could have been making more public appearances and saying, hey, calm down with the speculations. We have either definite evidence that goes against what people are saying, or they could have done numerous things other than just be silent. Extinction doesn't work all the time. It really doesn't. Sometimes all it does is make more fires for people to start with their own beliefs, because whether you realize it or not, as human beings, there's certain members of us that have to know. They have to know from start to finish how it happened. And if they don't have all the pieces, then they're gonna listen to people to guide them a certain way based on their bias of the situation. So I know factually most every case that depended on transfer DNA has been overturned on appeal. In most cases, it's because their DNA was found and never examined. Okay. Thank you so much for liking. It was a dead skin cell transfer DNA, not spit, blood, or any body fluids. I saw it with touch DNA, not transfer, single source as well. And that's what makes all this information so extremely difficult to get behind, because we have people that work in these areas, and then we have people that know people who work in these areas, and we've heard from so many quote unquote experts. And when it's all said and done, we don't know if there's fibers that they collected that had any DNA. We know that there wasn't supposedly in the car any. There wasn't any at his office. There wasn't any at his residence. But we haven't been told there wasn't any at the 1122 house. So just because there wasn't any DNA, blood, or any kind of forensic material that tied him to the house or to the victims in those three places doesn't automatically mean that there wasn't any in the house that they've collected. You get what I'm saying? So that's what makes this case so utterly confusing. And my throat's starting to hurt a little worse. So I think I'm gonna call it. I really don't feel like talking about this anymore. I appreciate each and every one of you being here. Star, thank you for showing up. I haven't seen you in a while. I've stopped in your chat and said hello. I don't know if you've ever seen them or, I even contacted you one day. But thank you for your insight. Heather, thank you for your insight. And some of the new people that have been in here, Hal Bear, Bulletin Bling, Rondi, Aquarius, if you're still here. Um, Anybody that I didn't name, thank you so much for being here. Like I said, I'm not feeling 100%. I'm trying to get better. This cough won't go away. I don't know what it is. But thank you so much for being here. Um, yeah, I just stopped in very briefly. I was listening to your election stuff. But thank you for being here, guys. I'm just gonna close it out. I'm not gonna go with the whole rigmarole. Maestro, cue that music.